Welcome to True Echo, where real struggles meet unforgettable triumphs. In today's story, a simple question from a homeless girl at a five-star restaurant triggers a miracle that will change 3 lives forever. This isn't just a story about wealth and poverty, it's about redemption, revenge, and the miracle of human connection. Stay until the end, you won't believe the twist. In the heart of New York City, nestled beneath the glow of shimmering chandeliers and velvet-draped walls of Le Pavon, billionaire David Maxwell sat at a table draped in silence. His filet mignon was untouched. The Bordeaux, rich and red, sat idle beside a plate he hadn't lifted a fork to. All around him, laughter rippled from tables filled with the elite, their conversations dancing lightly through the refined atmosphere. Yet David, a man who held the reins of empires, felt nothing. 10 years ago, the car crash that stole his wife Sarah and their son Ethan had also stripped him of his will to live. He functioned, successfully, even brilliantly. But the man inside had long since gone quiet. As he stood to leave that night, prepared to vanish again into his cavernous penthouse, a quiet voice pierced the carefully composed ambience. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" David turned, stunned. The words were nothing, yet they landed like thunder. Before him stood a young black girl, no older than 20, holding a bundled infant. Her eyes, dark and defiant, stared not with shame, but strength. This was Jasmine Parker. Her coat was threadbare. Her sneakers were torn. But there was nothing pitiful about her. She radiated survival. Behind her stood silence, judgment, and a restaurant manager approaching fast. The manager hissed, "You're not allowed here. Leave now or I'll call security." But Jasmine didn't move. "I only ask for what he's not using," she said, calm and proud. David raised his hand, the silent gesture of a man used to obedience. "She's not bothering me," he said, his voice cold as steel. "I'll handle this." Jasmine's courage triggered something dormant in David, something human. He saw his late wife in her strength. His lost son in the child's tiny hand. "Don't call it leftovers," he told her. "This is your meal. Please, sit and eat." And she did, with dignity that humbled the billionaire. Jasmine fed her baby first, unwrapping a modest cloth from her purse to gently preserve the rest. She ate slowly, respectfully. Around them, the piano music resumed, the elite diners whispered. But David no longer heard them. He saw only Jasmine, the woman who had walked through the cold not for herself, but for her son. She reminded him of Sarah, not in face, but in soul. When the manager returned with 2 security guards, trying again to remove Jasmine, David stood up, fury hardening his jaw. "She's dining with me," he declared. "If she leaves, I leave, and so does my money." The manager blanched and vanished. Jasmine, shaken, thanked him quietly, but David only said, "You have nothing to apologize for." After dinner, she left, disappearing into the winter night with her child. But David followed, not out of pity, but an overwhelming instinct. Through winding streets and snow-dusted sidewalks, he saw where she lived, a car, rusted and frigid, tucked into a forgotten corner of a parking lot. Inside, she sang softly to her baby. A lullaby. "You are my sunshine." And then, another shadow moved. Roger Hamilton, the restaurant manager, stood nearby, phone raised, filming her through the cracked windows. "What are you doing?" David growled. Roger flinched. "She humiliated me," he hissed. "I'm protecting the restaurant's image." David stepped closer. "If you so much as post that video, I will end you." Roger's sneer faltered. He slipped away into the night, but not before a poisonous plan took root. In the following days, Jasmine noticed something strange. Each morning, beside her car, she'd find essentials, baby formula, diapers, food, even medicine. She knew who it was. David never reappeared, but his presence lingered in every silent act of compassion. One day, a woman approached. Not security. Not press. A pediatrician, sent discreetly by David to check on Noah. Just making sure he's healthy, she said kindly. Jasmine didn't know whether to cry or flee. She was tired of hope. Hope had betrayed her before. But David kept his distance, letting his quiet actions speak louder than any promise. And in those gestures, Jasmine felt the first flickers of trust. Still, shadows lurked. Roger wasn't done. Late at night, he fed stories to gossip blogs. He sent reporters false leads. He fabricated an interview with Jasmine's ex, portraying her as manipulative, a gold digger. He knew how to weaponize perception, and when a single photo leaked of David cradling Noah in a hospital hallway, everything erupted. The media spun it cruelly: billionaire falls for street girl's scam. Headlines screamed. Comment sections flooded with hate. Jasmine's face was everywhere, smeared, mocked, and misjudged. She broke. "I ruined your life," she whispered to David. But he only took her hand and said, "No. You gave it back to me." The media frenzy did not relent. Jasmine became a public target, the subject of cruel memes, aggressive paparazzi, and morning talk show gossip. Tabloids dredged up her past, her drop from nursing school, her eviction, even false records Roger had planted implying criminal behavior. Everywhere she turned, she was branded a con artist. A parasite. A threat to one of America's most powerful men. But inside their modest apartment, David remained her anchor. Every day, he fielded calls from lawyers and media consultants. Every night, he sat beside Jasmine in silence, her trembling hand cradled in his as Noah slept between them. "They want me gone," she whispered. "They'll never accept someone like me next to someone like you." David's response was simple, steady, and unflinching. "They don't decide who I stand beside. I do." But he also knew words weren't enough anymore. Roger was escalating. Anonymous tips were flooding major news outlets. A televised exposé was in the works. If David didn't act quickly, Jasmine's name, and Noah's future, could be buried under lies. So he did the unthinkable. He agreed to a rare live television interview, something he had avoided his entire career. No scripts. No PR filters. Just him, the truth, and the world watching. When the day arrived, Jasmine sat frozen in front of the television with Noah in her lap. Across the country, millions tuned in. And then David appeared, not in a boardroom or a tech conference, but on a plain stage, face solemn, voice clear. "I'm not here to salvage my name," he began. "I'm here to protect two people who have faced more cruelty than most of us could imagine." He told the full story. How he met Jasmine. How she never asked for anything. How her only mistake was loving her son so fiercely she was willing to beg for food. "She is not a thief," he said. "She is not a liar. She is a mother. A better person than most of us." Then he paused. "And maybe, she saved me too." The studio went silent. And in that moment, the narrative shifted. The interview aired across every major network. Clips flooded social media. A man who rarely spoke in public had just bared his soul, not to protect his empire, but to defend a woman the world had tried to destroy. For the first time, the hate turned to reflection. Then reflection turned into support. Commenters who once ridiculed Jasmine now apologized. "I judged too quickly," one wrote. "This man has more heart than all of Wall Street combined," said another. Hashtags like #StandWithJasmine, #Noah deserves better, and #MaxwellTruth trended for days. Donations from strangers poured into advocacy centers for single mothers. Jasmine's name was still on everyone's lips, but now it was spoken with compassion. But Roger Hamilton wasn't finished. The man who had once ruled Le Pavon with smug arrogance now fumed in silence. Watching David's redemption infuriated him. He had lost control of the narrative, and of the power he once wielded. But Roger still had one last card to play. A week after the interview, Jasmine received a letter, handwritten, trembling, from someone she never thought she'd hear from again. Her mother. Vanessa Parker. Jasmine read the note at the small kitchen table David had bought for their apartment. Her hands shook as the words blurred through tears. I know I failed you. I know I shamed you when you needed love the most. But I'm dying to meet the grandson I've never held. Just once. Please. The pain rushed back. Jasmine had been disowned, cast out, left to give birth alone in a clinic with no family beside her. She wanted to rip the letter up. But Noah cooed from the couch, reaching toward her, and something in that gesture cracked the wall around her heart. David found her there, tears in her lap and Noah crawling toward her leg. She didn't need to explain. He'd already read the letter. He knelt beside her and said, "You don't have to forgive her today. But maybe this is a bridge that leads to peace." And Jasmine, brave, guarded Jasmine, finally nodded. Just once, she whispered. For Noah. Jasmine and David traveled quietly to the neighborhood Jasmine had once vowed never to return to. As the car pulled up to the small house where her childhood memories were buried beneath years of silence, Jasmine froze. Her mother, Vanessa, opened the door before they even knocked, a fragile figure with gray-streaked hair, eyes red from sleepless nights and regret. For a few painful seconds, they just stood there. Jasmine's lips didn't move. But Noah, wide-eyed, curious, and innocent, reached out his little arms toward the woman he instinctively knew was family. That single gesture shattered the tension. Vanessa broke down, falling to her knees as she gently took Noah into her arms. Her cries filled the doorway. I never stopped loving you, Jasmine. I just didn't know how to show it. Jasmine couldn't speak. Her throat tightened with 1,000 emotions she had buried for years. But when her mother looked into Noah's face and said, I'm so sorry, baby. I missed everything, a part of Jasmine, the part that still ached to be seen, to be loved, began to soften. David stood quietly by, letting the moment unfold. Inside, the old kitchen looked the same, the cracked linoleum, the faded photographs. But everything felt different. Vanessa made tea with shaking hands. Jasmine sat across from her, no longer a scorned daughter, but a mother herself now, wiser, stronger. As Noah played with a chipped wooden spoon, Vanessa told her the truth, her father had passed away. Her brother was in another state. And every birthday, every Christmas, she had cried in that empty house, praying for a second chance. I didn't know if you'd ever forgive me, she said, but I had to try. Jasmine nodded, not out of surrender, but out of grace. I don't know if I can yet. But I'll let you meet your grandson. For him. That night, as they said their goodbyes and walked back to the car, Jasmine felt lighter than she had in years. Thank you, she whispered to David. For helping me come back to this moment. But in the dark, just across the street, a man crouched behind a car. Roger Hamilton. He'd followed them. Watched everything. And now, with his phone in hand, he uploaded blurry photos of Jasmine, David, and Vanessa into an email, attaching a forged financial statement and a faked paternity test. The subject line read, Maxwell's family scandal, confidential leak. Roger smiled coldly. Let's see if your truth can survive this. By morning, the storm had returned. Gossip sites exploded with cruel headlines, Is the baby even his? Maxwell caught in family scandal. A blurry photo of David carrying Noah while Vanessa trailed behind was plastered across every major tabloid. Roger had doctored evidence, including a fake claim that Jasmine once tried to pass off Noah as David's biological son. He even added fabricated statements from Jasmine's ex, accusing her of fraud and manipulation. It was brutal. And it spread like wildfire. Inside their quiet home, Jasmine sat frozen at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd read her mother's letter. Her phone buzzed non-stop, friends from her past, strangers she'd never met, all demanding answers. But worse than the noise was the doubt. The fear. Would David still stand beside her? But David didn't hesitate. While Jasmine tried to shield Noah from the chaos, David called his legal team and held an emergency press conference. But this time, he didn't go alone. He brought Jasmine with him. In front of a crowd of flashing cameras and skeptical journalists, David stood at the podium, Jasmine holding Noah a few feet behind him. "I warned everyone before, we won't be bullied by lies. But now, this has gone beyond rumor. It's become an attack on a child. On an innocent mother. On truth itself." He revealed the doctored documents, the false accusations, and the identity of the man behind it all, Roger Hamilton. Then, in an unprecedented move, David released security footage and witness statements proving Roger had stalked them, planted bugs in their home, and orchestrated every malicious leak. The truth hit like a tidal wave. By nightfall, Roger's world collapsed. He was arrested for harassment, defamation, and unlawful surveillance. Media outlets issued retractions. Public sentiment flipped, again. Only this time, it stayed. Suddenly, Jasmine wasn't a scandal. She was a survivor. A mother. A symbol of grace under fire. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to peace. Jasmine and Vanessa rebuilt their relationship, one conversation at a time. David moved them all into a quiet home just outside the city, where Noah could play in the backyard, chasing butterflies instead of headlines. One late spring morning, as the sun broke through the clouds and cast golden light on the grass, David knelt beside Jasmine in the park and held out a ring. "You didn't just change my life," he said. "You gave it back to me. Will you marry me?" Before she could answer, Noah toddled forward, looked up, and said for the first time, "Daddy." Jasmine's tears spilled freely. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times." They embraced under the open sky, with Vanessa watching nearby, crying quietly, not from regret, but from joy. And Roger Hamilton? He vanished from the headlines, his career and reputation destroyed by his own cruelty. No one mourned his absence. In the end, it wasn't David's wealth that saved Jasmine. It was his choice to see her. To listen. To believe. And it wasn't Jasmine's beauty or desperation that won David's heart, it was her strength, her dignity, her refusal to give up even when the world demanded she break. They found something together, not just love, but redemption. And that's the real miracle. Sometimes, a single act of kindness can become the spark that lights an entire life. David saw Jasmine, not as a charity case, but as a human being. Jasmine gave David a second chance at life. And in the end, their love triumphed not through wealth or power, but through truth, courage, and forgiveness. As we leave you with this unforgettable story, ask yourself. Could you see the miracle in someone the world has written off? If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to True Echo for more powerful stories that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. And let us know in the comments, what would you have done in Jasmine's shoes?